Hello and welcome to Colonial Outcast, the anti-imperialist podcast that is going to be turned inward on the imperial core to Los Angeles, specifically the Palisades. Well, at the time I was writing this intro monologue, it was basically just the Palisades. Now it's expanded to a number of other locations. It's getting increasingly out of hand, which we'll talk about shortly. And they burned to the ground. Literally, the Palisades look like Gaza. So weird, but not really. Climate change, corporate interests and corruption, government sabotage of its own institutions in order to push for privatization, all brought to you by the same class of political and corporate elites, at the pinnacle of which sits techno-feudalist bros like Elon Musk, who are happily shilling taxpayer money for foreign wars and the complete devastation of Gaza and the cleansing of West Bank. And look, the reason I bring this into California is it's all connected by the same system, unchecked and unregulated capitalism and imperialism. 2025 is going about how we thought it would go, but we're in week 2 of the new year, and I'm already kind of exhausted. We might even have to title this episode Pistachio Wars with Iran, Prison Labor and Wildfires, the Unchecked Dystopia of 2025. And that title, as you'll see, is apt because pistachio production, wars with Iran, the wildfire, and prison slavery is all connected by this wonderful thing we've got going on here in America. So let's get into it. I'm your host, Greg Stoker. Mark Wayne couldn't be here tonight, but we've got some great guests who are able to hop on last minute. Asad Shaloub, host of Habibi House podcast, linked below in the description, which I was just on last Friday in LA. This is his second appearance on Colonial Outcast. First time was, I believe, an episode regarding his experience with the 2006 Lebanon War. And he's actually in LA right now, and he's going to be talking about what's going on in the city. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know it's kind of late for everyone. We're recording this like at midnight where I am for like an early morning release. And also, we're joined by Mea at Space Bunny News. She is a very prolific intersectional activist coming to us from San Diego, California. Great internet researcher, and I've been following your work and activism journey for some time now. Also, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, y'all strap in as I kind of set the thematic stage for the rest of the episode in the next couple minutes. This is my customary intro monologue, and we get to talk about cops. So basically, here's the scoop. The general public still hasn't grasped the climate crisis that is now upon us, and there's many facets to this issue, the current wildfire issue, and we are nearing the brink of complete societal collapse in certain areas of the country, perhaps even the whole country within the next years. Hopefully it's at least 10 years because I'm still trying to enjoy my 30s and have enough time for like a short midlife crisis in my early 40s, but it's coming. So climate change is killing the insurance industry by making risk impossible to price. When homes and businesses of millions of Americans become uninsurable, economies and states die. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic, but I see in the next 10 years untold amounts of permanently displaced people who fled from high-risk climate zones, somewhat reminiscent of the refugee camps our politicians blithely ignore in Palestine and in the rest of the world. And guess what? They absolutely would allow that to happen over here and happen to you specifically. So perhaps it's a good time to reflect on the fact that last year, the LA City Council approved the mayor's budget cut of $23 million from the LA Fire Department, amongst other departments, so they could give the LAPD a $138 million increase, even though crime has decreased and there are fewer cops. This is really par for the course, though. So before we get into our main section, I want to ask y'all the basic question: why overfund the police and underfund the fire department? A number of reasons. First, for the cops, the police are purportedly there to protect and serve, which is true, they are, just not you. You're not in that bougie club. Yet while they do solve the occasional crime, they perpetrate far more and don't really prevent them. So they primarily exist historically to union bust, even though they're insanely protective of their own union, which is one of the many reasons they're called class traders, busting unions while viciously protecting their own union, to engage in scab defense, protecting non-union workers from union action, and property protection for businesses and the wealthy. While all of this is true, their primary purposes at their founding, and you know what Williams Wordsworth's proverb was, the historic one, was always correct. The child is the father of the man. The roots predict the destiny. So modern American police, which now influence European police, were born as a counterinsurgency force in Northern Ireland, forces in Northern Ireland, like the Royal Irish Constabulary, the commander and veterans of which went on to found the London Metropolitan Police, which served as a model for police forces in New England, NYPD, Boston PD, and they were also born out of slave patrols in the Caribbean and Carolinas, which were also counterinsurgency forces. The police have always been militarized. They're just expanding that militarization rapidly. See cop cities, essentially urban warfare training centers like the ones we have on military bases. So as the situation gets more desperate overall in the coming years, the working class gets more disenfranchised, people over the next decade are permanently displaced, and anger and rage builds at the uber rich, which both Dems and Republicans serve. They're going to need more cops, more well-equipped cops, more counterinsurgency forces. And everything we've seen with cops at protests over the past year, well, they really love their work. So why I'm about to wrap up here, y'all. Why defund? So that's why you fund the police. One of the many reasons why you would, from their perspective. But why defund the fire department? In short, the primary reason to defund a government institution is to undermine it, erode public trust in it so that you can manufacture consent amongst the people to privatize it and make rich dudes richer. So here's Noam Chomsky on the subject of sabotaging this stuff in order to privatize it. Wait, where is my video file? Oh, here we go.
If you want to privatize something and destroy it, there's a standard method. At first, you defund it so it doesn't work anymore. Then people don't like it. They get upset, accept privatization. And it's happening in the schools. They're defunded. They don't work very well. Furthermore, teachers are demonized, especially teachers' unions are demonized. And the independence and creativity of teachers is undercut. They have to be humiliated. That's a large part of the point of the teaching to test mania. And so people, when it doesn't work, people accept some form of privatization just to get out of the mess. There's no improvement in education, probably generally makes it worse. That's usually the case with privatization. But it does help instill the new spirit of the age, gain wealth, forgetting all but self.
That's a big theme going around lately. Gain wealth, forgetting all but self. Now, before we get into the privatization of water by pro-war with Iran billionaires, privatization of the fire department, corporate land grab conspiracies, all this is wrapped into the LA fires. Before we get into the LAPD, LA Fire Department, prison slavery feedback loop that all feeds into each other connection, let's turn to Assad, who is currently in LA. What the F is going on?
Man, how do we even unpack this? I'm not going to pretend like I'm some expert, but I can give the rudimentary. So as of right now, the Palisades fire, which is where all kind of started, is over 15,000, almost 16,000 acres, which is like staggering number. There are institutions in Malibu and the Palisades that are just completely gone. It's unreal, absolute apocalyptic scenes coming from there since it's been over 24 hours that's been happening. So we have a lot of viral videos coming from there. Then out of nowhere, we go to the Eaton fire, which is also a 5-digit acre, almost 11,000 acre area that is affected. And literally as of just several hours ago, we have the Sunset Fire, which is in the Hollywood Hills, and Studio City Sun-Swept Fire that's affecting almost to the Sherman Oaks area in North Hollywood. So, Pasadena, Glendale, Santa Monica even. There are people, like I was reading, I've been reading a lot of like anecdotal evidence of people saying that like if it were to ever cross into Santa Monica, that's when it's really bad because it's pretty much never happened. The Hollywood Walk of Fame is in danger. Just places that have never been affected are in the danger zone right now, and it's unprecedented.
The Palisades is completely wiped out.
I mean, there's I'm looking at Watch Studio right now that has been a priceless app that everyone has looked to. There's also the Genesis Project or Genesis Protect also link that I've been sharing on our socials. Between the two, it's provided very good information about shelters and stuff. We'll get into that later about where people can go and evacuate to. But yeah, the Palisades fire, there's like the deep red that they have is pretty much covering the PCH into Malibu, very deep into the Palisades, almost to Mescal Peak. Topanga State Park is in the flames.
Is it safe to say that this is like the biggest one you've seen?
Yeah, I haven't been here. I've only been here 5 years in LA, and I've heard. I'm reading Reddit threads. I'm reading Twitter threads. I'm reading all these people that have been here for their entire lives, and they just have never seen anything like this. So definitely for me, craziest one I've seen. And the funny thing is, and it's not really funny, but the interesting thing is that a lot of the fires that have been devastating have been while I've been here. So it's happened very recently that there's, the Woolly Fire and like all these major fires that have wiped out the area over and over again. And they keep rebuilding. And I was just told by a colleague of mine about a book called The Ecology of Fear, written in 1995, and there's a chapter about the case of like letting Malibu burn, quote unquote. And really, it just boils down to like that area should just not be inhabited by humans. Yeah, I mean, it's a very dangerous area, and we're seeing our worst nightmares kind of come to fruition right now.
Mea, were you saying before you were you sent me a voice note before? I was kind of like multitasking at the time. Can you see ambient light from LA in these fires? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no, I can't. But if you're close enough to the fire, I mean, in earthquake areas, when people say, oh, the sky turns green, and a tornado's coming, the sky will turn orange. And, I grew up in San Diego, so I'm kind of used to this. And I remember the first time that I was really close to a fire, I went outside and it looked like really slow snow that was coming down. It was just like a layer of it. And it was just people's homes. It was just ash that was just coming down. And, you look over to the hills and you can see, where all the fire is. That was in the one that I was close to. So there definitely is like you can see it coming on, especially if you're in that area. So, I mean, I supposedly, from what they say, there's been 5 deaths so far. And I've seen videos where people are like in their homes and the fire is like raging right outside of their homes. I mean, it's absolutely devastating. Like, I don't know how fast this thing was moving, but it seems like these people just didn't have enough time to get out. Because, I know in my experience, as soon as the sky turns orange, start packing your stuff.
Right. And these, what is it? The Santa Ana wind or Santa Barbara winds? Or
Santa Ana winds, yeah.
Yeah. They're at 100 miles per hour.
Yeah. And so, I mean, those things happen like every year. And that's kind of like, fire season right there, because they're really dry. So those things create the conditions for these fires to really burn really rapidly and to spread rapidly. So you have high winds and you also have really dry conditions. And so the problem with California is that last October, they do these things called prescribed fires. If you drive up the coast, like, California, you'll see like hills just black. And so that's because, California is just burning these areas so that way, a fire won't jump this area. So it keeps these fires located in certain places. But back in October, they discontinued that in California. And then this happened.
Why?
I have no idea. I was looking for it. It just says U.S. Forest Service stopped prescribed burning in California for the foreseeable future. There was no real explanation. Oh, well, they did say they wanted to hold on to their resources. So in case of an actual fire broke out, they needed all their people and their supplies for a fire rather than preventing it. We need our supplies for when it gets really bad.
Well, it got bad. Now, a lot of people are taking this as an opportunity to push a political agenda. So First of all, we've got right-wing pundits. Cam Hybe, he follows me and I follow him, and we have a hate relationship. He says, I would just like to remind everyone that 85% of wildfires are started by humans, according to the National Park Service. The rest are started by lightning. It's not climate change. It's LA's out of control homeless population starting fires. Okay, I don't know where that's coming from, especially since, if we go to a right-wing, center right newspaper like the USA Today, that they like the article, what started the wildfires raging across Los Angeles area? Fire officials are investigating the causes of multiple wildfires that are destroying homes and forcing thousands to evacuate. But then again, they're basically, all these officials are not saying necessarily that it's humans. They're quoted. Cal Fire said in an update, the combination of low humidity, dry fuels, and shifting winds has heightened the potential for spot fires and rapid expansion. How do wildfires start? Even these services say, like, cars just driving down the road can start these fires because it's so flammable, this area at this time of year. So yeah, but it's not just this. It's not just right-wing social media. It's also let me pull this one up. We're going to a Fox News article that's very misleading in its title. Los Angeles, this is from Fox Business today. Los Angeles mayor slashed fire budget last year and prioritized homeless population. Do you feel like, Assad, that the homeless population is prioritized in LA in any way?
If by prioritized they mean completely abandoned, then yeah.
I just wanted to point out for the audience this thrust to blame homeless people. And I think this is a good tie-in. Do you want to go into the LAPD prison industrial slave labor complex homeless person loop?
I'm down.
Okay, because this is an important component about what's going on here. There's like 30% of the people fighting these fires, according to state statistics, are forced labor from prisons. They don't really have a choice in it, and they make like $2 an hour fighting these fires.
Yeah. So we got you said it was this kind of like this kind of cycle that goes on. It's basically this slavery loophole that was actually on the ballot. Like it was a vote to basically allow slave labor or not, and for somehow it was not passed, where we were trying to make that illegal. So slave labor is essentially, enforced labor is still legal in California, and you're seeing that right now with the firefighters that are, as you said, the 30% of the force are literal prison inmates that are fighting, that are getting paid. I think it says between $2.90 and $5.12 per day, as opposed to $36 per hour of what a regular firefighter would make. So you just see the extreme gap at a fraction of the cost. I think it was Kamala Harris's office that got in trouble by basically saying that prison labor is just too valuable in California to get rid of it, and she denied that. And we're seeing that happen again, where they're basically wanting to incarcerate more people, to have cheaper labor, to then subject these inmates to extreme disasters like this. And then once it's all is said and done, and the dust settles, and they get out of prison, they can't even become firefighters in real life after post incarceration. So it's an insane, just situation all around.
Yeah, and why would you want them to become firefighters? Because you have to pay them more, and if they could get good jobs, they probably wouldn't reoffend and go back to prison. So,
yeah, why would you ever want that? So, and then they become homeless,
and then that's another reason to incarcerate them as well. Yeah. So basically, critics argue that this entire system exploits incarcerated individuals, particularly in high-risk, low-paid roles like firefighting. I think there are other prevention methods that I want to talk about before we get into like broader issues like generalized capitalism and imperialist exploitation. But Mea, you said you wanted to touch on forest burns or something before, because that's a component of this.
Yeah. So, prior to discontinuing the prescribed burns in California, they used to do about 125,000 acres, like all throughout California. And the other issue was they're not sweeping up all of the excess foliage, like all of the dry brush that's in these forests is also responsible for kindling these fires. And, these little tiny pieces, can easily be picked up, by the winds and start another fire, not too far away. So, I mean, that's how these things travel so quickly. So, not having enough money for, our forest department, and then also ending these prescribed fires is really dangerous for California overall. Because, I mean, we don't know how these conditions are going to be as far as, whether we're going to get a good amount of rain or not. I just heard on the news today I think we got 0.02% of the rain that we got accumulated from, since last year. And that's literally nothing. So, from the time that we're not getting any rain, they just absolutely scratch, all of the controlled burns in California. So it's just, collecting all of this brush. And so it's just a recipe for disaster. And then including the Santa Ana winds, where it can carry and push these things out, to people's homes outside of these fire areas, to more like residential buildings and stuff like that. It can be extremely, extremely dangerous.
Right. And a lot of people have been pointing out on social media that, the second this kicked off, Joe Biden authorized another $8 billion to Israel. Again, they're connected systemically, but they're not necessarily correlated. However,
California has the right to defend itself.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, are we going to have F-16 Israeli F-16s flying over the fires and airstriking it with water?
Well, they upped the NYPD budget so much, so perhaps the LAPD could just shoot the fire.
Yeah, it's not black enough though.
Yeah, no. Damn. So, all right. Well, how do you feel about y'all's mayor,
Karen Bass?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard nothing but terrible things about her. I haven't really looked into her, but as I've only now recently looked into the kind of the term, I guess, what is it when they can't they do it on purpose, where they're just like not doing their job correctly.
Weaponized incompetence. I don't
yes.
know what you're going
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Weaponized incompetence. There you go. You're seeing it right now.
She was just away on a trip, and she was grilled by a reporter, and this was her response. If you're just listening to the audio, there is no response. She just freezes.
You owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning. Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position?
Elon Musk?
Yeah, I guess he's like a right-wing Sky News reporter. So I don't know why we'd bring Elon Musk into. Oh, well, I mean, Elon Musk has been shitposting all day about the wildfires to distract from the fact that his H-1B visa position was not in line with the MAGA core. So now he's like trolling Canada and talking about invading Greenland and talking shit about the Democrats in control of California, which is valid, which is more than valid. But it's Elon Musk is getting into this because he's now going through a megalomaniacal spell. And he's basically commenting on literally everything that's happening right now. But anyways, that's why Elon Musk was brought into this one.
Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them?
She's like,
do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
Okay, well,
incredible.
Yeah, so I basically could say like weaponized incompetence or something. That was kind of an unstellar response. She does have an entire media team.
She clearly did not speak to her public relations person prior to that.
There are a lot of conspiracies going around, and we just have to talk about it because, like, we can look at Maui, right? In Hawaii, when it burned, there was no significant relief response. And one of the interesting things was the implications of some of the conspiracies, which I'm not a conspiracy guy, because I believe that the performative effects of conspiracies, whether they happened or not, or were simply opportunities to be capitalized on, the performative effect is the same. So I do remember like the Maui stuff, direct energy weapons.
Mhm. DEW.
What was that about? I don't really know, but it's kind of reminiscent of Marjorie Taylor Greene's Jewish Space Laser Corps was starting the California wildfires a few years ago. And one of the things is like corporate land grabs, right? So State Farm and other insurance companies dropped a lot of properties from their policies a couple months prior to the fires here.
72,000.
That is a significant amount of homes that were uninsured in this highly volatile area. And I mentioned at the beginning, like insurance companies are now going to start backing out because it's impossible to price risk because of climate change. But these land grabs will kind of happen because these homes will not get replaced because they're not insured or anything like that. So these people will be permanently displaced. And the fear is that these development companies will be able to seize this land for pennies on the dollar. And that's where, and it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. So whether or not it's a conspiracy or not, the performative effect is going to be the same thing. So the one issue with conspiracies is they kind of distract from addressing real causes like climate change, land management, which Mea has been talking about. Like, look, the government of California has been lampooned for a long time for being wildly incompetent in its response to these fires. I don't know if there's like public education programs about prevention methods or like fact checking about misinformation. Like it's all homeless people's fault. But yeah, it just seems like a complete mess. And people, because of this, what I brought up earlier, are not going to really be putting a lot of confidence and trust in the fire department. Do you see that as a consequence of what's happening here?
I think that's unfair.
Okay.
I think it's unfair because I feel for the fire department is doing what they can, and I think it's like blaming the doctor when it's really the insurance company. It's the firefighters, I guess, are the face of fighting fires, so it's like the lowest hanging fruit to blame them. But then we're here to like tell you it's more of a systemic problem than a firefighter problem.
Right. But I was asking, is like, this is definitely going to, as a consequence of this, they're going to push a narrative that the firefighters aren't enough and that we need more. They're inadequate to deal with the situation. And
Yeah, when they're defunded, when you see there's photos of one firefighter per one gigantic house burning. So it's not that they're not enough. It's just that there's not enough of them, and there's not enough resources, as you said, with the defunding of the LAFD and then the 8% increase. There's a $2 billion budget for the LAPD. That's obviously not acceptable, and we're seeing why.
Yeah. So that goes back to my original point. So here's where the privatization comes in. So Keith Wasserman, he's this CEO real estate developer. He went like viral on Twitter. Did you see this one?
Yeah, so ironic. He's like saying "Long live Israel" and stuff, and then now.
Well, I mean, obviously he's a real estate developer in LA, is going to be a Zionist, but he tweeted, "Does anyone have access to firefighters to protect our home in Pacific Palisades?" I think I missed a word there. Does anyone have access to private firefighters to protect our home in Pacific Palisades? Need to act fast here. All neighbors' houses burning. Will pay any amount. Thank you. And then
it's like what Rick Caruso did.
Yeah, not just Rick Caruso, but this actually happened during, I believe, the first round of Malibu fires, right? Kanye started the trend. Celebrities are using private firefighters to save the neighborhood. This is from Architect's newspaper. As the Woolsey and Camp fires continue to burn across California, raising a combined total of nearly 2,500 acres and destroying entire towns, celebrities are turning to private firefighting teams to keep their homes safe. The private firefighting team, the privatized history of firefighting in America is well known. It actually, I think, started in the Roman Empire because Crassus, the third member of the triumvirate with like Julius Caesar and Pompey Magnus, like made most of his money off of privatized fire brigades. And so the Romans instituted their first like state-run firefighting squads. But anyways, dating back to when roving bands of firefighters used to squabble for territory throughout the 1800s. The first responders to put out a fire were the ones rewarded by the insurance companies. Those competitions often saw squads setting fires to intentionally throw off their rivals, but the practice thankfully died off in the second half of the 19th century as government ownership became the norm. So I don't think it will look like the wild, wild west of firefighter brigades, but the privatization basically will go along certain lines. And the privatization of all these institutions is currently what the government wants. So I guess what that business model will look like, and it's hard to know what it looks like. But after this, after all those rich people lost their homes in the Palisades, I definitely expect a major push, and from LA to go out nationwide, that private firefighting needs to become a national norm.
But again, it just makes my head spin because what's a private if the road to the Palisades is one and it's bottlenecking? What's a private? What are they going to do? Well, are they going to use? What are they going to do differently than the government firefighters?
Well, that's easy. They're going to discriminately protect houses.
That makes sense in the general sense, but I'm just saying, like in regards to the Palisades fire, when there's literally one road to these houses, what's the difference?
I'm saying it's not really going to matter as a difference. They're going to push forward anyways because they want to control the resources. Well, they're going to make a lot of money off of it, and they're going to have proprietary protection. I think local geography and transit is notwithstanding. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Mia? I think you're muted. 1 second. Oh,
yeah, I just unmuted it. It's interesting that you bring that up because here in San Diego, one of like the richest communities, it's called La Jolla. They're trying to break away from San Diego to create like their own little community, and I can totally see them doing this. They have their own private police, private, firefighters, and if firefighters are privatized and only meant for those communities, they could just say, fuck everybody else. We don't get paid to put our lives on the line for the rest of the community. I only get paid to worry about this department over here. And so I think it's really going to pull away from, because fires are indiscriminate. They don't care what community they're going to go into. They're going to go where it's dry and plenty of shit to burn. So I think that's a disaster policy. I think it's another way of pulling resources from the state and helping everybody in general, because when these fires go off, they have to call from other counties to come and help them. So are they going to have that ability to call other people to help them if, things get really bad? Will they be allowed to go to other counties to help, or are they only going to say, hey, I'm just at the Kardashian house, sorry, right. I can't do anything from you. And so that's what they're kind of required to do. And if you take away that requirement, you're losing an entire state's, kind of ability to collectively help each other.
Which does bring up another unprecedented thing was there was literally a call to anybody who has ever had any kind of firefighting experience. Like, people have never seen this before, where the Los Angeles Fire Department had a hotline that you could call so that you could help them out because of how understaffed and how just spread thin. So I could definitely see how that could be a major problem, where they're already scrambling for people to help them out, and then now the resources are going to be thinned out even more when it becomes privatized.
Yeah. Well, the rich are the uber rich are building their own bunkers, so we could just go fuck ourselves. But I wonder right now. One thing I wanted to remark on was after the killing of like Brian Thompson, the whole Luigi Mangione thing, sensation broke out, there was kind of this like budding sense of class consciousness growing. Ben Shapiro went on. He started talking about how healthcare CEOs, they provide a service and blah blah blah, and he got ratioed in his own comment section, which was crazy.
As usual.
Yeah. Oh, I don't really check his comment section. I don't know. Like, does he have a lot of haters?
I mean, if he might call them haters, but it's not really hating if it's facts.
Okay. So, it's not libel if it's true, but so there's this budding thing. It was like people were even like, I don't know, man, this is not a left-right issue. And so I was kind of hoping to see it with this California wildfire situation, but they just want to blame Dems, which is disappointing because, got it. I don't think anybody who watches this channel is like, yay, Democrats. But it's like, it's a little bit more than that. There's plenty of conservative people that are still pushing for the same agendas and the same, policies as well. But speaking people who aren't necessarily Democrats, there has been a longstanding issue about drought in California, and a lot of this water is privatized, which is concerning and a problem. So, Mea, you did some research on the Resniaks.
You know what? I'll get to it at the end too, but these people highly protect themselves. I was looking at their donations on Open Secrets. Mm-hmm. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, like per person, like $289,000 to Democratic congressional campaign. Like, these guys, they know how to work the system so that way they can, protect their resources. So there's this Kern Water Bank that was created in 1988. It's like an underground water storage facility. It's about like west of Bakersfield. And come 1994, there's something called the Monterey Plus Agreement. So Linda and Stuart Resnick. They're owners of the wonderful company. They have like pistachios, palm juice, almonds, wine, and they're worth like $8 billion. They use about 150 billion gallons of water a year. And so they went with a bunch of state water officials, some contractors, and them and some other agricultural landowners to Monterey Bay. They went to like this fancy resort, and then they rewrote the water laws, and they scratched something called urban preference. So during times of drought, what happens is all of the water from the reservoir gets to go to these urban areas. The residential communities get priority over it. So instead, they took that away and they gave agricultural land priority over this. The other thing that they did was they changed the ownership. So the water bank got changed to Kern County Water Agency, and they immediately signed it over to Kern Water Bank Authority, which it's supposed to be a public entity, but there's also a private company involved called Westside Mutual Water Company, and Westside is owned by Paramount Farming Company, which is owned by the Resnicks. And so they own about 60% of that water right now. And then these guys, what they get to do is, during these times of drought, so say if they have 60% of the water and only like 5% back in, I think, 2023 went to urban areas. And so if there is an excessive amounts that urban areas are in need of, they get to sell that water back to them. They get to sell the water back to the state. There was a few lawsuits against this couple about, concerning these water rights. But it's so long. I couldn't read and break down everything into it. But it was literally the lawsuits that started in 2010. And it looks like it is just going nowhere because these guys are just paying off people. Money to candidates. Let me see. $125,000 to stop the Republican recall of Governor Newsom, 123,000, 109,000. I mean, each time they're dropping $100,000 on these politicians
state
and bills.
Campaigns.
Yeah, yeah.
State
So these
campaign.
guys have a ton of money and they know exactly what they're doing.
And this is all bad for California, even in a capitalist sense, because agriculture uses 80% of California's water, but only represents like 2.5% of its GDP. This is literally insane.
Yeah, we're still importing like avocados from Mexico. I mean,
The Resnick's water monopoly is just one of the ways their quest for wealth hurts the rest of us. The lobby, and this has been established by, Perfect Union, Gray Zone News, like I think it was even in CNN, like they lobby for increased tensions with Iran to keep embargoes on superior Iranian pistachios. Their giant crops lead to monocultures, which kills important pollinators. They siphon taxpayer dollars into the charter schools they own. They set up to train children to work their farms. And of course, like any company of its size, they exploit their workers. But the Iran aspect is just really what ties all these domestic problems to like U.S. foreign policy, right? And this is why, again, the drought, the fire in California is such a great microcosm for looking at all these connected interests by a certain class of people that spread not just into your own community, but into foreign wars on the other side of the world. So there's this documentary, Pistachio Wars. I haven't watched it, but I'm going to. But it's a very original documentary. It reveals how this Beverly Hills billionaire couple are willing to push for war with Iran in the Middle East, in order to protect their own, essentially, pistachio business. So like it's absolutely insane. Like they lobby all these crazy think tanks in Washington. So basically 3 years ago, journalist Yasha Levine and filmmaker Rowan Worham first arrived at their plantation
Love that word.
to start a documentary. And there they saw firsthand how a billionaire power couple had successfully manipulated the state's political system to privatize its water supply. Again, guys, firefighters next. It's called their company's called The Wonderful Company, and it's owned by the Resnicks. It soaks up more water than the entire city of Los Angeles. Their business was based, basically, according to the documentary, on a heist of epic proportions. The story basically winds itself far beyond the California Central Valley and to the heart of America's Israel lobby. It basically turns out that they have been pumping some money into some of the hawkish, most pro-Israel think tanks in Washington, including the American Jewish Committee and the Washington Institute on Near East Policy. Those are bad. I've referenced both of them as hawk tanks in previous episode, and both of these outfits have lobbied heavily for sanctions on Iran and against the Iranian nuclear deal. So, yeah, guys, super fun. You didn't expect pistachios to have to do with economic sanctions and war hawkish footings against Iran, did you? It's almost like these oligarchs really have a hand in shaping U.S. foreign and domestic policy. And I invite Americans to start looking at foreign policy, because it's tied in to why you're getting totally fucked here too.
Oh, speaking of foreign policy, there was also, did you know that Saudi Arabia had about 10,000 acres of alfalfa farmland in Arizona, and they were using up so much water that they had lost, they lost their right to continue farming there, but they had been doing it for years. I'm trying to look up more details about that, but what's messed up. I do remember that story. Yeah. And then what's messed up was, from the Colorado River there, that the Supreme Court also ruled against the Navajo Nation having their water rights. So they're just abandoning that treaty altogether. It was a 5-4 ruling.
Wow. It's almost like intersectionality is like something we should start working at as well.
Yeah. So the natives can't have their water, but sure, let's give some to Saudi Arabia.
Wow. Yeah. So
what they use water there for? Enhanced interrogation, right?
Oh, yeah. The U.S. government has a whole bunch of different uses for water. But yeah, basically call to actions like treat water for what it is, a necessary public resource, a human right, and something that shouldn't be owned by anyone, and work towards legislative change that stops people like the Resnicks from stealing it. That was something coming, a sentiment echoed by Perfect Union, the site. But I don't see how, personally, I don't see how legislative change will affect anything because they own the legislator. Mea was just talking about their very public and obscenely massive campaign donations.
Was it a total recall?
I don't think that's going to change because they're just going to keep buying everybody out.
Right. Was it a total recall where they privatized oxygen on Mars?
I think yes, on Mars. But yeah, that's
it's going that direction, I think.
Yeah, well, that's the horrible thing about science fiction dystopias. They're very prescient and they always come true. And right now, we're kind of manifesting so many dystopias. Now that these things are happening, one thing I believe we're going to see going forward is, a focus on what is like happening to the celebrities. Like apparently they're all having to like hide out in, the Hollywood hotel and stuff. And I think that's really sad. Did
you see James Woods like crying on TV?
Yeah, James Woods, the Uber Zionist actor.
The guy that was like annihilate everybody like on October 7th, and then now he's crying on TV about losing his everything. So irony at its sweet irony.
Because he doesn't have home insurance. Well, neither do people in Gaza. So yeah, the Daily Mail. I'm looking at it right now. Obviously a problematic newspaper, but this is not the only source of people listing celebrity woes. So exclusive. Pacific Palisades fires caused Beverly Hills Hotel to, quote, overflow with millionaires as stars like Reese Witherspoon may lose their home. An actual Zio headline basically foreshadowing how the apocalypse will be portrayed by the media. Oh no, celebrities are refugees from millionaire mansions in Beverly Hills. Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of distracting tactics going forward. Blaming the Dems, blaming homeless people, focusing on celebrities, everything to distract from. We're really getting screwed over by the same people, whether they're Republicans or Democrats.
So true. And we keep sending money to Ukraine and Israel instead of using it here domestically. So
yeah, and I do think that people on the right, specifically Trump land, are going to be less critical of those foreign payments if they continue to happen under Trump. Now, we've seen some divisions over the H-1B visas, but they got glossed over very quickly, by this crap about the Panama Canal and trolling Canada about how it's going to become a 51st state. By the way, how many electoral votes would Canada constitute as an electoral state? And they'd mostly be blue. So how would that affect getting another Republican president in office? But that's a complete digression. So
yeah, that wouldn't be smart on Trump's end. Let's have another Democratic state.
Yeah, another Democratic state. And especially they're going to like you when you take away all their democratically socialized health care. Totally going to love that as well. So it was basically all of these distracting tactics that we're going to see going forward. I'm just kind of wondering what you guys anticipate happening in the near future. First, you, Assad, in LA, and then Mea in California in general.
Well, I tried to be a little hopeful. I mean, you did bring up a good point about the privatization where celebrities are going to start doing this and kind of going in that direction. But I tried to be a little bit hopeful, without hope, I guess it's what's the point? But I thought maybe that if the places like Hollywood, like the Hollywood Hills and the Palisades and all these rich places are getting affected, that's when real change would happen. When the peasants that are getting affected, they don't care. But once you start hitting the millionaires, then they'll start changing things for the better. Unfortunately, obviously not for the wrong reasons, but maybe the ends justify the means. But maybe I'm being a little bit naive. But maybe we'll see some kind of push now that the playing field is literally leveled, both physically and literally. Physically and figuratively. These people are now homeless. These celebrities, obviously, they have places to go and they have the means, and they'll be fine. But maybe somebody will have a change of heart again. Naive, possibly, but there's so much. Greg was just on my podcast, and we talked about a lot of dark, dismal stuff. And 2025 is going to be really rough geopolitically. Obviously, as we are sitting here talking about the fires, Gaza is still burning and getting destroyed. We have an imminent ceasefire, dissolution in Lebanon, Middle East, like Syria. All this stuff is happening. So I'm hoping that maybe domestically we can get our affairs in order, but it is very bleak, to be honest. But we're going to keep trying to have hope and apply pressure to the politicians to not keep getting. I think this is bringing everything to a head, and now they can't get away with it as easy. So I think that we can apply pressure and really just do what this country says that we can do, is have our voices heard and maybe enact a change.
Well, hopefully that works. I have 0% faith that will. I think that they're funding the NYPD like that for a reason, because they control the proper channels that you're able to voice your grievances, and they're fairly sure that they won't work. I think violent, protesting a very brazenly open-faced genocide for the past year. And you were at the UCLA encampment. I was at the UT encampment where they sent in horse cavalry at liberal arts majors. I got pepper sprayed 3 times at DC, and there was a lot of energy, and it literally changed nothing. So I think that was we're going to keep doing it. But then again, protest, voting are literally the least effective ways of affecting political change. But that's just my opinion. I hope some change is able to be made, like you hope, and only time will tell. Mea, what do you see happening in California from this?
Honestly, I really don't think there's going to be much change. I mean, they already have a budget for 2025, 2026. So how are they going to reallocate? They're not going to pull money from the police, and put it into deforestation or anything like that. So, and these insurance companies, I mean, they're already starting to leave California. I see this as things are going to get much worse before any real change is going to happen. So I see a lot of people actually leaving California right now. People are saying that, the taxes are too high here. They can't get insurance. Some people can't even get insurance if you live too close to the beach. Like in San Diego, if you live too close to the cliffs, you can't have insurance there either. So what is the point?
Even if you do have insurance, I was just gonna say, sorry to interrupt. Just even if you do have insurance, I've seen that they're not even honoring it, right? They're pulling their fire insurance away. They're not even paying. You go look at your policy and see that they have completely canceled the fire insurance too. So I've seen that happen over and over, and people are claiming that these insurance companies are not going to cover these damages.
Yeah, and I wonder if any of the new insurances that come out, if any of these policies are going to have that requirement that you have to, pledge allegiance to Israel, because that's what they were doing at some of these hurricanes, for them to get relief.
Oh yeah, in Texas.
Well. Yeah, I can see them doing that in California as well.
Wild.
Because I think California is one of the states that's actually more pro-Palestine than the rest of the country. So I think that's going to be something that's really pushed in the state of California. So
That's crazy.
I mean,
I believe it now because it's 2025, and it seems like we're living in an Onion article.
Do you want your insurance to work? Pledge allegiance to empire.
I'm waiting for the earthquake to happen. Like, when the fuck is that coming? Because we are overdue, 40 years or something like that for a major earthquake. And I'm a little bit nervous about that. So yeah, these fires suck, but also whenever this earthquake comes, I have a feeling it's not going to be good either.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it's going to come this year. Like, everything's coming this year. It's gonna get worse before it gets worse. That's one of our taglines here at Colonial Outcasts. So
sounds about right.
Yeah. So, guys, it's kind of there aren't these direct lines between the beyond the entire system of capitalism and a very small group of people that exercise oligarchic power over our government and our policies. There are different demographics within the rich and the uber rich, but yeah, the Elon Musks, the people with their nut empire in California are able to exert unnatural power on the majority of the world's population. So just kind of wanted to get into the California wildfires because it was definitely an interesting case study on how all of this is connected, generally by the same people, the same exact people. So that's kind of what we're looking for in 2025. And the only remedy is to try to wake people up to literally just class consciousness. You don't have to be a freaking rebel, but like, just don't be sucked in by celebrities are forced to like leave their $1 million homes and it's all the Democrats' fault and stuff like that. We should resolve that this be the year to end identity politics and stop caring about celebrities. They suck. Like, if you haven't learned how much they suck over the past year, I don't know what to tell you.
These fires came right around the same time that ICE was coming in and the Border Patrol and coming and taking people from like gas stations and stuff like that. So these Trump policies of going after immigrants came like right at the same time as the fires, and then the fires kind of overshadowed those news stories too. So I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of coincidences going on. So we'll see going forward. Yeah. Just keep internalizing that all of these struggles are connected, and solidarity forever. We're a week in, guys,
and before we go, I want to just do that go bag checklist.
And before we go, we've got a call for action if you're living in a natural disaster area.
Perfect. So just like the great Jason Bourne said, you don't want to be able to leave anywhere. You got to be able to leave anywhere in 30 minutes, right? So in your go back, I love your face.
Why Jason Bourne, pro movies.
Yeah, we were talking about celebrities, so I was like, Matt Damon. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so ensure your wildfire go bag includes a 3-day supply of non-perishable food and 3 gallons of water per person, a map with at least 2 evacuation routes, necessary prescriptions and medications, a change of clothes and extra eyeglasses, contact lenses, extra car keys, credit cards, cash or traveler's checks, a first aid kit and sanitation supplies, a flashlight and battery-powered radio with extra batteries, copies of important documents, birth certificates, passports, etc., and pet food and water. Additional items, if time allows, any valuables, family photos, irreplaceable items, personal computer data on hard drives and disks, and chargers for all your cell phones and laptops. And would you want to list the shelters that people can go to as well?
You can post them in the comments.
Okay. I'll go ahead and do that after this episode I'll link all the links that you guys need, from Watch Duty to Genesis Protect to all the shelters that are taking in animals and humans alike. So
Yeah. And we're going to do a follow-up episode on this with probably our new producer here at Colonial Outcasts. He's literally had to flee the Palisades, and he's been basically in a bus just transporting people and watching the cops be completely useless. Because the cops, their only statement they put out is they'll be on station to stop looting. Cool. Again, property protection. Thanks, LAPD. Anyways, guys, we'll be doing part 2 on this probably Friday, and we will see you then. Again, Asad Shaloub and Mea at Space Bunny News, thank you so much for coming on, and we're signing off. Cheers, y'all.
Thank you.